I'm not a crook.
Story on the countdown, more saber rattling with different sabers tonight. Thus, with the publication of a new article by Seymour Hersh of the New Yorker magazine titled Shifting Targets. Mr. Hersh, who joins us presently, having long warned that the Bush administration has been seriously plotting for war with Iran, now reporting that the White House is changing the why. Instead of a broad bombing attack against the nuclear facilities of Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, the administration now planning for surgical strikes against that country's Revolutionary Guard Corps, the same Revolutionary Guard Corps that last week 76 U.S. senators voted overwhelmingly to urge the State Department to declare a terrorist organization. As part of its sales pitch, Hersh reporting that the Bush administration is planning to say Bill Clinton did the same thing by conducting limited strikes in the 90s in Afghanistan, the Sudan, and Baghdad. Scared yet? If only that were the extent of what appears to be a coordinated effort by the Bush administration to instigate a military action it seems to view as an end, not a means. John Bolton, the administration's former never-confirmed ambassador to the UN, telling conservative British lawmakers over the weekend that he sees no alternative to a preemptive strike against Iran. Diplomacy was never his strong point. Mr. Bolton even going so far as to utter the words regime change. Meanwhile, Deborah Kagan, the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Coalition Affairs to Defense Secretary Robert Gates, having told another group of British lawmakers last month, on September 11th no less, that she hates all Iranians. That is not an exaggeration, not even a characterization. The exact quote was, "I hate all Iranians." The Pentagon now denying she had uttered those words, but three members of the British Parliament who were there that day all confirming they heard her say it. Lastly, but certainly not least, there is the so-called godfather of the neocons, Norman Podhoretz, who in an interview with C-SPAN over the weekend said, "I believe Bush is going to order airstrikes on Iran before he leaves office." Why does he believe that? Because he met privately with the president recently and spent the better part of an hour trying to talk him into it, apparently coming away thinking he'd done a good job doing so. It is almost enough to make the assurances given by Dana Perino at the White House this afternoon seem hollow.
The president has said that he believes that there is a diplomatic solution that we can use to solve the Iranian problem, and that's why we're working with our allies to get there.
That's what I said before we went to Iraq, too.
I'm not going to comment on any possible scenario that an anonymous source, continues to feed into Cy Hersh.
Why should anybody believe that the president wants a diplomatic solution? He said that
the president sought a diplomatic
Iraq.
solution in Iraq, and Saddam Hussein defied the UN Security Council 17 times.
Some of the history we've learned since suggests otherwise.
That the president didn't, that Saddam Hussein defied 17 UN Security Council resolutions?
The president was intent on going to war in Iraq in any case.
No, the president pursued a diplomatic option. He went to the UN Security Council, and then we proceeded.
A bouquet of roses to Bill Platt. Seymour Hersh of the New Yorker kind enough to join us now. Mr. Hersh, good evening. Thanks for your time.
Glad to be here.
Of the many parallels between the war run-up for Iraq circa 2002-2003 and what now appears to be this march to, or towards at least, war with Iran, does the White House seem to have given, is there any estimated in your reporting here that it's given any thought to the aftermath of an attack? Has the administration thought this through beyond the bombing runs?
That's the great question. I can't give you an answer to that question. I know that they've been told the consequences would be. I know that the intelligence community is very worried about what they call asymmetrical warfare. In other words, Iran can respond not necessarily against us or against Israel, but maybe hitting oil targets in the Gulf to drive the price up, triggering terrorism somewhere around the world. It's very hard to know if they're fully aware of the consequences, because there is a lot of braggadocio that I hear about inside about with this new change, it becomes easier in a sense. You're not talking about 1,000 points of light, 1,000 bombing missions. You're talking about much more narrowly gauged missions that will get the international community, perhaps even Britain, to go along. It's not so bad. We're only going to be hitting the boys that have allegedly been killing our boys in Iraq.
You wrote in the piece now that as part of the significant increase in the tempo of attack planning in mid-August, senior officials told reporters that the administration intended to declare Iran's Revolutionary Guard Corps a foreign terrorist organization. Well, coincidentally, last week by this 76-22 vote, the Senate passed the Kyle Lieberman amendment. And lo and behold, it urged the State Department to designate the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. Because of Democratic pressure, there were changes made to just about everything else in that resolution. Is it a coincidence that the part about the Revolutionary Guard seemed to be the one section that made it through intact?
I don't think so. There's been a real campaign. The White House has sort of shifted, even in public. You can sort of sense it. You can actually track it. They can't sell the nuclear, that Iran's a nuclear threat. That just didn't work. The American public did not buy it. They just, having gone through the WMD issue with Bush on Iraq, they weren't getting traction. But this new gambit, this new idea that started coming up earlier this summer, that the reason we're having trouble, the debacle in Iraq, is not because of the debacle we started, but it's because of evil Iran. That's why we're losing the war and we're in such trouble in Iraq. The Iranians are the key. That all started this summer. And it's been a drumbeat. You know, you would really think that every problem we have, every IED, the explosive device that comes off, was given to the Iraqis by the Iranians, when in fact Iraq is a cesspool of weaponry, has been forever. So I think these guys are pretty serious about what they're doing. I can't tell you there's been an order given by the president to do bombing. It may not happen. He may end up doing the big bombing he wants. But he's certainly, the White House and Cheney in particular, are looking very hard at limited options which they think they can sell to the American people much more readily.
That would be the where. They've just changed part of the where as well, and the wherefore. But is it clear to you at any point why the administration feels it's necessary to attack Iran? I mean, absent any compelling evidence that there is this nuclear threat or that the part of their military is a terrorist organization, which seems to make no sense by definition. What is the impetus for Dick Cheney and his cabal? What are they going to get out of this? Because obviously they always get something out of everything.
You know, you're asking me an opinion question. I'll give you an opinion answer. I don't know. But I can tell you from talking to my friends, and I'm long of tooth, been around a long time, got a lot of people I trust that are more or less are inside. I don't like talking about it. But the bottom line is, it's real easy. You hear the White House spokeswoman today say, we're interested in the diplomatic track. Well, all he has to do is start talking to them, and then you get diplomacy. And he's not talking to them. He has no interest in talking to people he doesn't like. He doesn't want to talk to the Syrians, the Iranians, Hamas, Nasrallah, the Lebanese one-time terrorist group. He doesn't want to talk to people. If he would talk to them, I could say to you that there's some reason that we might not go to war. But the only thing you hear from inside is that these guys really want to do. And I have this wonderful quote in the magazine this week, somebody saying to me basically, that Cheney and Bush really don't, you know, in terms of the Republican future in the election in 2008, presidential election, the quote is, Cheney and Bush don't give a rat's ass about the future of the Republican Party when it comes to this.
Lastly, you know what the White House response to your article today has been, that you're always writing articles about increased preparations for a war with Iran. I think I know your response to it, and I think I agree with it, but what is your response to that response?
Listen, this was light. Usually they go after me personally. When I did Abu Ghraib, stuff in the Abu Ghraib, they had a Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense accuse me literally, he said, of throwing crap against the wall to see what sticks. And this is when I had photographs in print. So this is a pretty light response, simply to say that, you know, how dare you commit journalism?
And repeatedly. Hersh of The New Yorker, great thanks for your time tonight and for the diligence of your reporting, sir.
Thank you, sir.